We are now ready for the last chapter of 1 Corinthians, chapter 16. And once more, I finally want to encourage you to keep your Bible open and follow word for word. You'll get far more out of it if you will. Now, we have seen that in the first 6 chapters of 1 Corinthians, Paul was answering questions which were brought to him by means of a delegation that came to Ephesus from the church. And then in chapters 7 through 16, he's answering questions that were asked him by means of a letter which he received from the church at Corinth. Now, the last thing we saw was in chapter 15, the resurrection. And now he has a variety of things in chapter 16, and in this chapter we find that he has a fourfold purpose in what he has to say. And the first thing that he's saying to them is to urge participation in the collection for the poor saints down in Jerusalem. Now, many churches were involved in this and participating in taking up a collection to take down to the saints in Jerusalem for their need. Now, notice in the first 4 verses of chapter 16. Now, concerning the collection for the saints. Now, evidently they'd asked something about this or said something about it in their letter. As I have given order, as I have instructed to the churches of the assemblies of Galatia, even so do ye. Now, what I advise the churches in Galatia to do, I want you to do the same thing as they did. Now, what was that, Paul? Upon the first day of the weeks. Not just week, but weeks. The first day, week after week after week. So he says, in the early church, they met on the Lord's Day, which was the first day of the week, not the last day of the week. The last day was the 7th, which was the Sabbath. Now, in the New Testament, we find that they met with the Jews in the temple on the Sabbath, and then with the believers on the first day of the week, or the Lord's Day. So upon the first day of the weeks, each week progressively, let every one or each one of you lay by him in store or in storing, as God hath prospered him. Now he said, according to your prosperity, week by week, as you have extra, then you give some of that for that collection for the poor saints, and having it be laid by in store and ready. Now, why do you want them to do that, Paul? That there be no gatherings or collections when I come. So that when I get there, you don't have to do it. Bring it in. Give what you have prospered throughout the week unto them. Now, we find that Paul is telling them what to do, and they already knew about this collection for the poor saints, and they had not done anything as yet. So we see that he's encouraging them to go ahead every week, every Lord's Day, and lay by a portion of their prosperity. Now, later, when he wrote 2 Corinthians, they still had not done anything about it. But they were enthusiastic about it when it was mentioned, and evidently they had desired to do something, and Paul used them as an example to other churches, encouraging others to give because the people at Corinth have such a zeal to do something. But now as he writes 2 Corinthians, he's having to tell them, now I've used you as an example and you haven't done it yet. Now look with me in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, and let's look at the first 8 verses there. Now in chapter 8 he has a lot to say about it also, but then what we want to see is just what's in chapter 9. For as touching the ministering to the saints, it is superfluous, that is, it's needless for me to write to you. For I know the forwardness of your mind. Now you had a forward mind, you were ready, you had a readiness of mind to do something over a year ago, for which I boast of you to them of Macedonia and Achaia. That Achaia was ready a year ago. Now he said, I've been boasting about your readiness and your desire to do something for those poor saints in Jerusalem, to the churches of Macedonia, and I told them that you were ready to do something a year ago. And your zeal hath provoked very many. The zeal and desire you had to really do something has provoked many others to go ahead and do something also. But yet have I sent the brethren, lest our boasting of you should be in vain in this behalf.